Namaste, everybody. Welcome back. And today we have Z with us. And today we're going to be talking about the 24-hour sun in Antarctica that has been known for nearly 120 years. So, how are you today, Z?
Pretty good, Notch. Glad to be here. Much love, everybody. And looking forward to a good stream, dude. And like you said, 120 years. And not just that the sun, the 24-hour sun in Antarctica was known for 120 years, but it was known and admitted by flat earthers for 120 years. So I can't wait to get into this one, man. This is going to be a good one.
Yeah, that's, if some people might ask, like, if we'd known about it, if the flat earthers had known about it for 120 years, where were those flat earthers, right?
We're presented with the prominent YouTube personality flat earthers, the gatekeepers. We can rattle off a bunch of names. And I think there's a tendency for people to have the mindset that these people are like the progenitors of this information, especially the way many of them carry themselves, the arrogance and hubris that we see in their behavior. There could be a mindset that like this is their information. But what I'm increasingly now reminding myself is that this isn't theirs. Yeah, there may have been a few people that jumped on the YouTube thing early on, but the information that shows that we live on a level topographical plane has been known to groups of people 150, 175 years, and probably further, probably forever. But when we talk about what the flat earth community is, it goes back to the mid 1800s. And I think many people forget that. And, so I was reminded of that. And I was thinking about it yesterday. So I said, let me look into the old literature. Let me look into what flat earthers were saying over 100 years ago and just kind of remind myself that it's not about these people. It's not about Jaron or Weiss or Sargent or Dubé or any of these people. There's nothing new under the sun. They didn't create this. This isn't their movement. This isn't their information. They just got a hold of it at a certain point and decided to bring it here online. So I was browsing through some of the old information and I came across some very interesting little tidbits that I know we're going to get into shortly. And I can't wait to share it because this is going to be an eye-opener to so many people. Because here's the deal, Notch. This final experiment, this same conversation that you and I have been having for months now regarding this whole debacle was already had 120 years ago. And the parallels are amazingly similar between the rhetoric on both sides. So this argument happened 120 years ago. So here's a little newsflash, everybody. Will Duffy, you're not special. Jaron, you're not special. None of you people are. Witsit, sorry, Wonder Boy. You guys brought nothing new to the conversation since 120, 150 years ago, except a model that you reify and beg the question of that now ironically is going to be used to prove the globe, quote unquote, to the entire world. Congratulations. That's what you brought, all of you, with your arrogance and your ego. And now here we are in 2024, and I have to come on here in front of all you people and show you that flat earthers already addressed the 24-hour sun 120 years ago. This isn't new. So all of you people who claim that you never heard of a flat earther who, quote unquote, believes in a 24-hour Antarctic sun, well, you're about to be proven wrong in a big way. And if you're a Glober, that's one thing. But for somebody like Jaron, who's supposedly a leader in the flat earth community, to not know this information, and for so many people to have overlooked this information for so long, it really says a lot about really all of you, the level that you're operating on, the amount of effort that you're putting into this. I mean, Notch, I mean, side note, but Jaron is 2 months away from leaving on the most consequential trip of his lifetime. And I don't know, you think he'd be preparing? You think he'd be doing live streams with his guest, brainstorming on equipment needed, observations to be done down there, demonstrations? You think he would be working tirelessly to prepare for this trip? What is he doing? He's playing reefer roulette with three abject morons week after week, just sitting there like a dope with sunglasses on. This is a guy who's going to Antarctica in 2 months. So this has turned into the biggest clown show I've almost ever seen in my entire life for so many reasons. And I'm so glad, Notch, that I at least have you in this battle, because when the dust settles from this whole thing, people are going to understand what Nachiketa and I and others like us are doing right now in this time for the truth. And the rest of you posers, well, you're going to have to find your spot behind us after this is all done, because we're going to remember, and the flat earth community is going to remember this time. And again, this was known 120 years ago. Flat earthers were addressing this same issue. So, Notch, what does that do to Mr. Will Duffy's narrative, to Jaron's narrative, to anybody on their team who think that they're so special right now with this final experiment? Like, this was the big got you, supposedly, for everybody.
So that I think is also kind of a gaslighting to me that a lot of us, especially here, feel that the final experiment is not genuine, and it's a false dichotomy, and it doesn't prove anything one way or another. And the fact, and the fact that you have found information regarding that there are flat earthers more than 120 years ago who admitted to the fact that there is a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, and they don't know how to explain it, but they admit to the fact that there is a 24-hour. But that doesn't change the fact that we are living on a topographical level Earth. So I'll start with that, I suppose, right?
Yeah. And, as we get into it, we'll see their arguments. And it's a very simple argument that they make. And it's the same one that you and I and others like us have been making. It's the basic argument. The optics of the sky don't overrule the physics of the ground that we live on, the ground that we can test, the ground that can be measured, verified, substantiated, that ground. And to think otherwise, to me, is, again, completely fallacious, as I've been pointing out over and over and over. So, and I want to highlight this again, this idea that this flat earth topic, it's not ours. It's not Nachiketa's, it's not mine. It's not anybody that you know here on YouTube, on the internet, on social media. No matter what they bring you, what it was, this was all said and done before. Now, most people haven't taken the time to go through the old literature from the 1800s and the early 1900s, when they were basically forming the arguments that we all make today. I'm so fed up with the state of this so-called community right now that it gives me a degree of solace to look back and say, oh, this isn't any of these people. There's not an original idea from a flat earther that wasn't thought of, addressed years ago. Now, of course, we've added to things, and we've, used technology in the information age to build off some of those fundamental arguments, but the fundamentals still remain the same. Water lies level always when at rest. So, and I would encourage anybody out there, really go through the old books, the brochures, the literature, the journals. They had them, they had their club. They had groups all over the world that were addressing this topic years ago. I often wonder, Notch, how many people who resonate around these communities are even aware of the history around this topic. I would guess at this point, especially in light of like this information that I came across, that many people are not aware of it. I would conjecture that many, even espoused flat earthers, a fair number, would probably not even be aware that this goes back over 150 years. You know, the word zetetic, I didn't make that up. That's the name that I use here. But you'll see as we get into some of this old literature, they called themselves Ztetics. They didn't call themselves flat earthers. They called themselves Ztetics. They know there's a 24-hour sun. I know there is now too. You know, it's becoming ever more evident as time goes forward towards this trip that there's obviously a 24-hour Antarctic sun in their summertime. Now, yes, again, it's plausible that they kind of sat back, you know, and watched this flat Earth community develop and maybe looked for the little chinks in our armor, man, you know, the weaknesses, and just kind of let us develop our own lore, our own model, you know, our own dogma and orthodoxy, let everybody become emotionally invested, and then pull the trigger on one of the gotchas. It's not hard, man. We don't have access to the resources, the time, the energy, the finances that these big governments, these big multinational corporations and organizations have, these secret brotherhoods, these secret societies, um, you know, mystery schools. We're talking about power brokers, big time. That's not any of us here trying to speak truth, you know? So, of course, there's going to be holes. Now, here's my question, Notch, is how much responsibility do we place on the flat earth gatekeepers, these modern day flat earth gatekeepers, for leading us into this position? For instance, as I and Nachiketer are about to prove in a few minutes, the 24-hour sun was admitted to and recognized by the flat earth community 120 years ago. It's in writing. You can't deny it. So, again, the question is, how much responsibility, onus, and blame should we place on the flat Earth gatekeepers for ignoring this, and even more egregious, Notch, actively claiming a positive claim to the entire community for years and years and years that there is no 24-hour sun? That goes for Dubé, that goes for Weiss, that goes for Jaron, that goes for all the Globebusters crew, that goes for Witsit, and down the line. How much? Because here's my thing. This is in the fundamental text that we all in this modern era base our knowledge base on, our information on. They somehow missed it or didn't believe it, but then led this narrative and brought us to this place here that now here we are 120 years later having had the same conversation.
Because of this idea that they thought, or they still think, the circling the 24-hour sun is not possible down in Antarctica. The final experiment thing has been brought to us, and lots of money and lots of attention is on this now, and the fact that there are quote unquote innocent individuals, and I would kind of consider like Lisbeth, kind of an innocent bystander who just want to know the truth, who is a younger, truth seeker, and maybe she is not wholly familiar with these type of argumentations that we are, getting into, and then now most likely, very highly likely, that she's going to be made a patsy out of. Regarding this whole experiment, and then Jaron will have to take responsibility, and also Austin will have to take responsibility for leading such an individual down to Antarctica to quote unquote, be an eyewitness to the truth of the fact that there is a 24-hour sun. Now what? Now what? They all see the 24-hour sun. Then by the dichotomy of that, the Earth must be a globe. Three flat earthers see the 24-hour sun down in Antarctica that flat earthers have known for 120 years plus. And now what? And we're going to be shooting ourselves in the foot by doing so, right?
Well, exactly, because regardless of the outcome of this observation, it doesn't change what this world is. But what it certainly changes is the narrative, the optics that will be presented to the world, which I think are going to be substantial and immediate. And I think it's going to grow and swell into something really big in the media at some point after this, because this is their big opportunity for their got ya. And it's a great media opportunity to put us all crazy conspiracy theorists, flat earthers in our place. And the anti-flat earthers, they're going to be who they are. You know, like whether you're FTFE or McKeegan or Simon, we know they're a known commodity. Notch, we get what they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
The real issue is the ones, the wolves in sheep's clothing,
Right.
that are
Yeah.
that are supposedly accepted into our community and are really, counted as the so-called leaders. And again, the apologists for these people, the ones that count themselves in that group, because a lot of people are watching this play out, but they're perfectly happy to sit on the sidelines. They don't want to make their voice known. They want to be non-committal. They want to walk the fence. Fine. But here's the thing. If you're a so-called leader of this community, you want the shekels, you want the donations, you want the listeners, you want the clout, you want the interviews, but yet you're going to sit back and let one of our most prominent members literally sell out the entire community, and at the same time gaslight all of us as if we're the ones being the big meanies to Jared, when before I even opened my mouth, I'll speak for myself, Jaron was already basically insulting, denigrating, and down talking this entire community, telling us we're all idiots if we're flat earthers after the 24-hour sun. And we're religious dogmatists. And he did a 5-hour video about me saying, how can I be Ztitic? When literally we're going to read people who call themselves Ztetics admitting to the 24-hour sun. Nobody hid from this. Jen, you didn't know this? He apparently didn't know it. He's very surprised about this 24-hour sun, except the flat earth community has known this for over 100 years. Jaron didn't know it. Jaron, if you read what I'm about to read in a few minutes, like on day one of hearing flat earth, would you have ever gone down this route? That's a great question, Notch, because he even said if he knew there was a 24-hour circling sun in Antarctica, he never would have became a flat earther. I'm paraphrasing. But I'm wondering if that's true, because, Jaron, I'm about to read one of the most foundational and popular FE books from antiquity that clearly addresses the 24-hour sun issue. So I wonder how truthful he is in that statement, if that really would have mattered for him. And the funny thing is, it didn't matter for the entire community that proceeded past 1904, when it was recognized by the prominent flat earthers of the time. We're all still here. All the flat earthers from 1904 up until now, which is 120 years ago, we're all here when our primary literature admits to the 24-hour sun in Antarctica. So
Yeah.
what are we even talking about here with this whole final experiment? It's a farce. It's a puppet show and a charade, plain and simple.
Yeah, I think, if we actually accept this timeline for what it is, and we know all this kind of Rockefeller school system began around that time. We know that people were taught the flat Earth cosmology, early 1900s, late 1800s, and all this kind of stuff. So this is something that's been suppressed, and people been programmed and re-educated, and the whole space agency and around the world, Russia, United States. The history is right there, and we get involved with central banks and world wars, and everybody's like thinking about something else other than the fact that we live in a designed world. And then time passes and people start to forget about things. So just in a few generations is all you need is to just completely fabricate everything and reprogram everybody, and then enough time has gone by where they feel like they're confident enough. It's like, okay, people are really programmed in, and then the people who are starting to wake up, let's like bash them down with this 24-hour sun down in Antarctica. And how are we going to do that? We're going to leak some kind of information, and then some of these influencers or prominent flat earthers or whomever they might be, they latch onto that. Maybe they didn't do any real research, and maybe they heard somebody else say it. Maybe they were programmed by somebody to say it. I don't know. But then they repeat it, and then you know how it goes. It's just like a mantra nowadays. It's like stationary and flat and the circling sun. These are the mantras that they speak without any kind of demonstrable uh, um, explanation or any kind of demonstration in regards to it. No proof whatsoever. It's just speculation. And then what? That's going to get us into this position of, well, you said, you as a content creator with 100,000 followers or 160,000 followers or 50,000 followers, you said it. So I have the money. We can take you down there. Yes, you don't have $31,500, but I do. And then we're going to see for ourselves. And then people, what do? They double down and triple down, and they're going to be eating their shoes pretty soon, in a couple months, I'm sure.
If you're going to make a positive claim, it's the argument I've been making since the beginning. You have to be able to substantiate it. You need empirical evidence to make a positive statement about anything. About anything. Whether you're accusing another person of something or you're trying to give a cause for something that we observe, some natural phenomena. You need empirical evidence. You need proof when you claim something. And maybe it's a sign of the times, Notch, where people are very comfortable making claims that they can't support. And maybe that's one of the modern day downfalls. That's one of the tragedies of these times that we live in, is this really lack of honor and lack of integrity and really morality. So to claim something, you should be able to support it. And unfortunately, we're finding more and more that people don't live up to that standard, whether they can't, whether that's just, I don't know, the new convention somehow. It's very weird. We in this, again, quote unquote, community have developed our own dogma, our own orthodoxy and tradition. And I think it's time to kind of take some steps back from that. And for me, at least, that's what this final experiment has taught me, is that it's really about the basics. And this information goes beyond any person or people that we could point to. It's not about them. We can talk endlessly on Duffy, man. I don't know how much I want to go in on Duffy, because what's the point, dude? Like I said, Duffy's going to do what Duffy does, just like McKeegan and Simon and all these people. They're going to be who they are. They don't really concern me. I don't need to spend my energy having any type of feelings towards Duffy. I already got what I needed out of him. My energy's on the ones who we have amongst us in our camp. And I think for me, that's going to be the most important thing moving forward, is how they behave. And again, how their apologists behave. Because frankly, I'm tired of being gaslit by these prominent members of the community regarding Jaren. I'm tired of people overlooking Jaren and claiming him to be the victim. Because the reality is, they're only clout chasing Jaren. They're only worried about themselves. And they lack all degree of integrity and honor at this point. And I don't know about you, Notch, but there are certain people in my eyes that I have lost a tremendous amount of respect for, at least. And I don't know if there's any way back from that. So I don't know. We'll have to see moving forward. But again, that's why I want to take it away from the people. I want to stick on the information because I'm realizing more and more. None of you prominent flat earthers, I don't care how many, you have brought nothing new to the table. And anybody who's listening, you can go and look at the old books and brochures from the Ztics that go back over 150 years, and you'll come to the same conclusion that I came to, that they laid it all out from everything, from the sun moving between the tropics of Capricorn. That was their model. It was sketched out on hand by these people. You can see it. I'll show it to you tonight. That's not Dave's. That's not Mark's. It's not Math Powerlands. It's nobody. This was done years ago, well over a century. You guys are all clowns. You purport yourselves as something. You act as though you're the new modern day intelligentsia. And all you've done is hurt the movement at this point, hurt information, and really hurt the truth.
As far as like reputation is concerned and integrity, it's definitely easier to slide. It's like, shoots and ladders type of situations. It's harder to go up, but it's easy to go down. I'm not the arbiter of like, who can maintain or who can maintain their reputation or not. But definitely, if people have said things that is a mistake or they're not correct or inaccurate, you know, um, uh, at the end of the day, each individual gonna hold everybody else accountable.
In light of this final experiment, I wanted to go through some of the old literature and really see what the OG flat earth community had to say about the 24-hour Antarctic sun. And I found some enlightening information that I'm going to share with all you guys right here. And Notch, it's actually kind of embarrassing, not just for me, but for the community, because Notch, in the foundational documents of the FE community, they addressed the 24-hour sun in Antarctica, admitted to it, and gave their very simple argument. And for some reason, this has gone unnoticed by everybody during this time, except the reason I was tipped off to this is because Dubé mentioned it. Now, for whatever reason, Dubé didn't make a big deal about this, and I have my theories why. One, I think because he probably has some egg on his face, because 3 of his 200 proofs were about no 24-hour Antarctic sun in his 200 proofs. So, okay, maybe it's a bit understandable why Mr. Dubé would not want to address this. But he did mention it. This was in some of the old literature. And I registered that, like, in the back of my gray matter somewhere. So when I was going through some of this literature last night, I wasn't specifically looking for his reference, but I think I found it. This book's titled Ztics Astronomy. Some of you may be familiar with it. And it was written in 1904. And you can see the authors. One is named Lady Blount, and the other is Albert Smith. And they were what they called themselves to be Ztetics. They were Ztetics. And the Ztetic community was very active and robust around this time. And they were writing books and journals and articles, and magazines, and they had a whole thing going. Before the internet, guys, before phone, before TV, before everything, really, they had a whole community worldwide discussing the same things that we come on here each and every night and talk about. And for me, at least, that's amazing to think about. And even more amazing is here we are 120 years later, like a bunch of morons arguing about the stuff that they had addressed at that time, as if we're all brand new clowns. So anyway, let's get into this. This is Ztetic astronomy, or the sun's motion north and south with the moon's motions, fancied or real, showing the uselessness of the gravitation theory and etc. I'm just going to pull a very few small excerpts out of here to highlight my point. We're not going to read like a bunch of, minutia here. It's not about that. We're addressing the fact that flat earthers admitted a 24-hour sun in Antarctica 120 years ago. They made their simple argument. Yet we have a bunch of people here saying that, oh, we've never heard of the 24-hour sun. Or I would have never become a flat earther if there was a 24-hour sun. Well, sorry, guys. You just maybe didn't pay attention. They address the 24-hour sun, Notch, in the preface to the book, dude.
Yep.
In the preface to the book, they come. So this is how honest flat earthers are compared to you lying scumball anti-flat earthers. They in the preface said right here, we're going to still talk about the flat earth. In 1904, we're going to talk about the circling sun between Cancer and Capricorn. We're going to talk about level water. We're going to talk about the impossibility, like they said in the title page, of gravitational force, the heliocentric model. And in the preface, we're going to say, okay, maybe there is a 24-hour sun in Antarctica. And here's our statement. So let me get into it. Preface. It was the late Richard Proctor who defined astronomy as, quote, a science whose facts are based upon reasoning. Inasmuch as the great temptation of all scientists is to conclude their reasonings before they have obtained all their data, the result is that their facts are based on insufficient evidence. What did I say in the beginning of the stream, everybody? If you're going to make claims, you need to substantiate the claims. You need to have empirical evidence. The globe doesn't have that. It simply does not. They said it here in the first sentence. Their facts are based on insufficient evidence. Let's continue. Our objective in the following chapters is to examine the quote-unquote reasonings and to show that their conclusions are false and their facts non-existent. While, as Ztics, we are not called upon to explain phenomena or construct hypothetical astronomical systems, it is our duty to show how far popular hypotheses fail, because the popular theory is made the basis of attacks upon the cosmology of the Bible. So obviously they were referencing biblical cosmology here. And think about the importance, the magnitude of what they just said there. While as Ztics, we are not called upon to explain phenomena or construct hypothetical astronomical systems. Jaron, you should have read this before you ever came on, dude. You would have saved us all like these headaches, dude. Because what did all you flat earth gatekeepers do from day one? You did the complete opposite of Ztic. You tried to explain the phenomenon. Witsit, incoherent dielectric acceleration, non-evidenced? Trying to explain a phenomenon with no proof? Pay attention. Or construct hypothetical astronomical systems. Oh, a sun that circles, that has no other options, that we apparently are supposed to see in a linear way, even though it can't be triangulated in reality, and all celestial data contraindicates your simplistic model. You guys went against the very second paragraph of the preface of one of the foundational documents of our whole community. You're all clowns. Sorry, let me continue. We submit the following chapters to our fellow Ztics as an honest attempt to explain celestial phenomena, especially in the South, which have not yet been explained on Ztic lines. Right there in the preface, they bring up the celestial phenomena of the South, and they say it has not yet to be explained on Ztic lines. So how dare you, Will Duffy, come with your so-called final experiment when it was done 120 years ago and think that you're something? And even more so, how dare the entire community go along with it and fall into this false binary trap that was already addressed by these originators, these Ztics. Let's continue. But while admitting known facts connected with celestial phenomena, we cannot see that one single fact in this direction has tended to throw any discredit on our basal fact. The surface of all standing water is level or horizontal, and thus we undeniably prove that the earth is not a globe nor a luminous star in the heavens. Wow, Notch, that sounds a lot like the argument that you and I've been making. It's the argument I made to Jaron. It's the argument I saw Bro Sanchez make to Jaron. A lot of people have been making this argument to these people who are accepting the false binary. I'll read it again. But while admitting known facts connected with celestial phenomena, we cannot see that one single fact in this direction has tended to throw any discredit on our basal fact that the surface of all standing water is level. And thus we undeniably prove that the earth is not a globe nor a luminous star in the heavens. So this is further, I think this is page 9, where it talks about the southern sun. And I'm just going to pick it up right at the relevant part. Now, when the sun reaches the southern tropic, Capricorn, it is summer in the south. Though at Christmas time, it is winter with us in the north. The sun's daily circuit is then at its nearest to the southern center. And so the midnight sun may be seen in the south at this time of year, just as it may be seen in the north during the Arctic summer. They stated it matter-of-factly right there. The midnight sun may be seen in the south at this time of year, just as it is in the north during the Antarctic summer. Let's continue. We have already shown how this is possible over a plane Earth and how it conflicts with the idea that the Earth is a sphere. And then they reference where it is. Now, Notch, our next mission is to find what they reference here, because I did not find in this book how they basically supported their claim they made just here. So I'll read it again. We have already shown how this is possible over plain Earth and how it conflicts with the idea that the Earth is a sphere. I don't know what their argument was there, so I can't speak on it. But anyway, that's not the point of this presentation tonight. It's just to show everybody that the 24-hour sun is no big deal. But we have our most prominent flat earther about to go to Antarctica saying that this is the definitive moment, that this is the mutually exclusive observation that's going to make or break the flat earth. Anyway, let me continue. That the midnight sun was seen south was reported by the late Antarctic expeditions. In fact, it was reported that the sailors played cards on deck in full sunlight at midnight about Christmas time. And then it gives you, it says, see reports in various newspaper afterwards. See also the Windsor magazine from May 1900, in which a photograph, presumably, is given of the midnight sun, taken from the ship Belgica on Christmas, 1898. So here they're referencing in one of the foundational flat Earth books that apparently the Antarctic expeditions knew about the 24-hour sun. It was well known here in the late 1800s, and there's photos of it. So let me continue. The Belgica was frozen fast in the ice from March 4th, 1898 until February 1899. So I don't know if you know that, Notch, but I learned that only in the last couple years that these big sailing vessels that were used on these expeditions, oftentimes they would get frozen in when they were either in the Arctic or the Antarctic for like a year at a time, and they would bring provision for years, and the boat would get frozen in the ice, and they would just live on the boat, and they would go out and on foot, and they would be hunkered down for a year and sometimes longer. And for anybody who's interested in a good TV show, there's a show called The Terror, and maybe some of you heard it. It came out some years ago now, maybe 5 years ago, maybe six, and it was all about Arctic expeditions done by the British and all these like Admiralty guys, and they were trying to find the Northwest Passage above the North Americas, the Northwest Passage to the Far East. And it depicts this very phenomenon where their vessel got frozen in. But on that particular story, the vessels were frozen in for like 2 or 3 years. There was no melt. And because it all depends on the melt of the summer. So anyway, they're referencing this type of situation here where these guys were frozen on their boat for a year. All right, let me continue here. The sun is represented as well above the horizon so that it could shine down on the sailors upon deck at midnight. Though not in harmony with the globular theory, this may be taken as fairly representing the facts of the case and as harmonizing with other known facts which have been reported to us by both Ztics and globularists. So that's what they called globies, globularists. Let me continue. For instance, we have made inquiries from various persons, and we find that the longest day in any place further south than the Tropic of Capricorn increases in length as the latitude increases or distance south of the observer. Right. Just like all the sun calc data is telling us. Just like people have been trying to tell these flat earth gatekeepers since 2017. The celestial data contraindicates your narrative, but yet you keep pushing it up until this day, all of these years later, where you're ironically going to use your simplistic bullshit reified model to fuck the entire community over. Let me continue. It follows, therefore, logically, that if we were to go further and further south, the longest day would keep on increasing until it filled the whole of the 24 hours. Then, of course, the midnight sun might be seen. Let me keep going. Testimony has now been given that it has been seen, and this testimony has been admitted in Ztic literature, thus proving, speaking generally, that Ztetics are willing to learn and admit of known facts. They use the word admit twice in that sentence. Just like I said, flat earthers admitted the 24-hour sun 120 years ago. You gatekeeping bozos either weren't aware of it or you hid it. So this takes all the starch out of Mr. Duffy's collar. This invalidates your entire final experiment. Sorry, everybody. Hate to break the suspense for you guys. But the FE community knew this information 120 years ago, yet we're all still here. Let me continue. Whether we can explain these facts is another question. But as we have before intimated, that whatever further facts we may find, which are proved to be real facts and not fancies, we shall admit. There's that word again for the third time, admit. But while admitting them to be true, Ztetics will never give up their primary fact that the surface of all still water is level, and the earth or land portion of the world, therefore, a plane or series of planes. Plain and simple. They made the argument 20 years ago in one of the foundational books. They stated it better than I've heard anybody in our time state it, and they kept it moving. Why the big deal now? That's the question.
Yeah. Because the time is right. Because the time is right, and there are enough quote unquote flat earthers who bought into this circling sun, and there cannot possibly be any circling sun down in Antarctica, and they have to repeat that over and over again. Wouldn't it be better if you say, well, they've known about it for a long time, and people have talked about it, like the flat earthers, the Zetics back in the day, and then we don't know how it's working. But I'd rather be in that position about, like, people have observed it. This has been documented. I can't explain to you how it's working, but that is something that we have to admit. Like they said, they admit to the fact that there is circling sun, midnight sun down in Antarctica. So that's where I'm at. I'm with them.
Yeah, and look, somebody could make the argument that they were being duped. I mean, could these sailors have come back and lied about the 24-hour sun when there wasn't one? Possibly. We can't rule that out. But the point of this presentation is just to basically tell everybody who apparently wasn't paying attention, this was already addressed. So I guess my point is, why should any person who considers themselves a zetetic, a flat earther, a level earther, a true earther, why should we not take the position that these original founding flat earthers took 120 years ago? Because they made the simple argument that no matter what the sky is doing, that doesn't change the demonstrated fact that large bodies of water, when at rest, lie level always. That's it. It's plain and simple. There's a multiplicity of reasons that could explain the sky. You could postulate things, you can theorize things, posit, conjecture, but you can never do more than that. Because unless you believe, like Elon Musk is blasting off to Mars and stuff like that, we can't ever substantiate these heavenly bodies. They're optical, no matter what. Now, this argument that it would prove a globe doesn't even get off the ground, because the globe is an impossibility. The globe has no legs to stand on,
Right.
because it's impossible. So I don't know what this argument is, as if we're just to hold as equal the globe theory versus the idea of a flat earth, as if they have equal weight, and this somehow is the definitive observation. It couldn't be further from the truth. The only thing that substantiates the globe is academia, media, so-called science, these organizations and institutions, but nothing that could be practically demonstrated, nothing that could be basically validated from applied physics, just a bunch of bullshit narratives. That's the only thing that supports the globe. So to give equal weight to both camps and then say this is a mutually exclusive observation is the definition of fallacious. But again, I want to just kind of impart this to all y'all listening, is that these modern FE community gatekeepers, none of this info is theirs. There's no credit to be given to them at all. There was a group of Ztetics around for a long time. People want to malign and minimize and even villainize the Flat Earth Society for whatever reason. I haven't done a lot of investigation into them, so maybe there's something I don't know. But at this point, all of the gatekeepers who wanted to call the Flat Earth Society the PSYOP, it's looking a little different. Looking like you're all the PSYOP at this point, because I don't see anybody in the Flat Earth Society going down to Antarctica saying that this is a mutually exclusive observation. I guess maybe we should remember that all. That we, the capital we, the collective we, have been around for a long time with a 24-hour Antarctic sun. So what changes now? Nothing except your mindset. That's it.